that neighborhood democracy could work and we could elect our representatives and our leadership. So we don't need Israel to affect us subculturally on the issue of democracy, because we are more democratic than Israel itself. We had more representatives in our legislative council, women, than it is in Israel. So let's put the question of ideology on the side. Our conflict with Israel is not a conflict over economics or human rights or religious. We believe in the three monotheistic religions. We believe Jerusalem, the holy city, could accommodate and could create the conducive conditions for a convivial relationship between the three monotheistic religions. After all, this is the Holy Land. We never had any problems with Jews, with Christians. We always had good relationship, because Islam, Christianity are religion, and Judaism, religious of tolerance and acceptance. It's not a religion of exclusion and racism and bigotry. So let's not put the religious dimension as a factor in defining this conflict, ladies and gentlemen. What we need is a political solution, not economic, not humanitarian. We're not a charity. We don't need charity. Palestine has been thriving since millennium as the center of trade and commerce. It's not a land without a people for a people without a land, as Golda Meir was saying. We were harvesting, we were shipping. We have people who come from Haifa, from Jaffa, in this audience, those vibrant cities that were the key cities in the whole entire Middle East. And then they say that they came to a barren desert and made it bloom. Ladies and gentlemen, our conflict is not with the Jews. Our conflict is not with Judaism. Our conflict is with Zionism. This political ideology that is trying to decimate and eradicate the cultural traces of Palestinians living for centuries in the Holy Land. Our problem is with the messianic vision of Eretz Israel by the Zionists, who claim that this is an exclusive land given to them by God. And I came to realize that our God is a real estate agent. He prepares, the promised land to the promised people.
We need the choice.
We have heard the humanitarian sufferings of the Palestinian people. I can relate anecdotes endlessly to portray to you the inhumane, systematic policies that have been practiced against my people. People giving birth at checkpoints and dying. People who have heart attacks could not reach hospitals. Students who cannot go to their schools because they have to go through the mountains to avoid checkpoints. And we can tell you so many stories. Ladies and gentlemen, occupation is ugly and repulsive. Yeah. It is a shame in the 21st century when we are using Twitter, internet, and the world is becoming a small global village. And still there is one of the longest modern occupation in history, i.e. Palestine. Palestine is not underdeveloped. You go to the camps, you find people using laptops, televisions. They know what's happening in Zimbabwe, they know what's happening in Mali, they know what's happening in Iraq, in Afghanistan. And they are aware of the debates in your parliament here and the way they have been talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We are highly educated people, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe this is the only power that we have concentrated on bringing literacy to our youth, because we believe that's the only ticket out of the ghetto, ladies and gentlemen. Education. That's our manpower, that's our human resources. Of course, we cannot control our land for the simple fact that it is occupied. This Oslo peace process that has been going on for the last 20 years, shepherded and sponsored by a third party called the United States, brought nothing except calamities and destruction and more confiscation of land and building more settlements and bringing more settlers, to the point where I cannot really, visually, spiritually accept a two-state solution when that two-state solution is almost gone, ladies and gentlemen. It's not Manuel Hassasian who is saying this. It's your Foreign Secretary, William Hague, is saying this. That the opportunity for a two-state solution is vanishing. I was asked in one of an interviews made by Sir David Frost, and I always like to tag myself this line because I like it. It was so inspirational that I cannot believe I said that. And I want to share it with you. Actually, I didn't believe what I have said. He asked me, Mr. Ambassador, 6 months ago you had a debate in this studio with your colleague. I said, no, he's not my colleague, the Israeli ambassador. I said, he's my enemy. He's not my colleague, he's my enemy. He said, well, of course, I understand that. 6 months later, how do you describe the political spectrum in this conflict? What changes? Do you believe that dramatic, draconian changes have materialized? I looked at him like this, as if God gave me this tagline. I said, Sir David, today Palestinians and Israelis are stuck between the historically inevitable and the politically impossible. He looked at me like this. He said, young chap, 55 million people are watching you. Can you repeat that again? He said, ladies and gentlemen, the ambassador said it all. When we finished, he said, you know, I pinned down Richard Nixon. I could not pin you down. He said, I was totally traumatized and tongueless. You know, I couldn't even ask you another question. But this is the true fact, ladies and gentlemen. The last 3 years, nothing happened on the ground. We have not really moved 1 inch in what is so-called the peace process. And it gets to me when I sit with British officials or American officials and what have you, and they talk about the peace process. They don't talk about the conflict of Palestine-Israel, because we are still at loggerheads, fighting each other over the same piece of land, and they refer to it as peace process. I told one of the, top officials, I said, can you define for me peace and process? I don't see peace and I don't see process and I don't see your tunnel and I don't see the light at the end of your tunnel. You tell me, where are we going with this? Please stop killing time and giving Israel all the time to change the facts on the ground to make it impossible to reverse to the situation where we were in 1967 when Israel occupied us. You know what Israel today said? Oh, Manuel, in our second track negotiations, what can we do with 750,000 settlers and with 140 settlements? I said, is this my problem? Or is it your problem? You created that problem. You find your solution. I'm not going to be part of your solution.
They can stop creating more.
Yes. They just
Ladies and
authorized
gentlemen,
thousands.
I don't know how much we can talk about the current situation in Palestine. You've heard what is happening in Gaza, and the same thing is happening in the West Bank. We are, yes, giving too much attention to Gaza because 1.8 million people are living on such a small strip, 360 square kilometers. This is one of the most congested areas in the world. Bangladesh is nothing compared to what is happening in Gaza today. But let's not forget Jerusalem, ladies and gentlemen. Jerusalem for me is the Battle of Stalingrad, where liberation of Palestine is going to start, ladies and gentlemen. And today what Israel is doing is trying to totally isolate Israel from the West Bank. Totally trying to ethnic cleanse the Palestinians. And I am one of those who had to fight battles last April to renew my residency right. I was born and raised in the old city, and I was denied my residency rights to become homeless and stateless overnight. I had to battle to get an extension for my residency, and the battle yet to come in July 2014, because that will be the real test for me, whether I can stay and live in Jerusalem or they will kick me out from Jerusalem. While a guy living in Poland have never seen Jerusalem, automatically at the airport, through the law of return, he gets Israeli citizenship and he can live in the West Bank and in any place in Israel. Is this justice, ladies and gentlemen?
No.
40,000 Palestinians from Jerusalem have been denied access back to their homes. Who hears about these things? Nobody. Israel is the small country that is besieged by Arab warmongers, by all these. Sure, these are failed states. What did the Arab states do? Did they liberate Palestine? Did they challenge the existence of Israel? 5 wars, ladies and gentlemen. Israel has won blitzkriegly against the entire military arsenals in the Middle East. And they talk about being, oh my God, the Arabs are, the Muslims. 1.5 billion Muslims couldn't do anything to this small state of Israel. Israel is the 4th largest country in the world that has stockpile of arms, nuclear arms and chemical weapons. And let's not talk about chemical weapons in Syria, regardless of my position of the regime there. Let's talk about chemical weapons used against Palestinians in Operation Cast Lead. The phosphorus that they have used today, if you go to Gaza, you could see our people, they're all burned. Carcinogenic material. We are becoming one of the most affected people because of this carcinogenic cancer. Cancer is becoming the #1 now problem that we face in Palestine. From the waste, from the nuclear waste that is dumped on the shores of Gaza. This is the democracy of Israel, ladies and gentlemen. And we, the Arabs, are the monsters. We are the backward Muslims. It is a shame.
You're winning, because as long as one Palestinian is still breathing and still fighting for freedom, Palestine is winning.
Absolutely.
And that's what annoys
this
them.
comes
The
my
fact that
optimism.
They've got the 4th biggest army in the world, but they can't defeat you.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole point.
My optimism comes from people like you who still believe in the optimism of the goodwill. The pessimism of the intellect is always there to alert us that through pessimism you reach your optimism. And now I don't talk about optimism in the short range. I talk about optimism in the long range. Because history is going to be on the side of the people and not on the side of dictators.
Exactly.
And I believe with our education, with our steadfastness, with our commitment, and with the solidarity movements that we have around the world, let alone the UK, with BDS, with boycott of Israeli academics, with boycott of Israeli goods, with lobbying through our members of parliament here, not to deal with Israel, to try to degrade, not upgrade the association agreement of trade in Israel in the European Union. These are the things that you can do, I cannot do. But the consciousness that you have, the awareness that you have, will always alert your politicians at one time in history to understand that they cannot but cater to the needs and the will of the people if they are considered to be democratic, as we believe that they are. We, the Palestinians, have to continue our steadfastness and struggle. Even if I want to stroll in the streets of Jerusalem, begging, I will go back and fight for my people. That's how we have been brought up. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 million Palestinians. In the year 2020, we are going to be the majority. The majority. And that's why we tell the Israelis, you don't want the 2-state solution? We are for 1-state solution. And 1-state solution, one man, one vote.
Yeah.
Right? However, their interpretation of one-state solution is the state of Israel plus the status quo, meaning that they will take parts of the West Bank, they will take the Jordan Valley, and they will render us as pure residents trying to collect our own garbage, as I said, self-administration. That's their concept of one-state solution. They don't believe in us having our state and having political sovereignty. And today, please, don't be fooled by the economics of peace. And don't be fooled by the American and the foreign secretary who's trying to sell us, you know, the peace economy. Mr. Kerry is coming to talk about improving the socio-economic conditions, as if we need socio-economic upgrade, as if we need to improve our living conditions. We have survived under occupation for so many years. So we don't need this economics of peace. What we need is political independence. We have built the Arab world, and I don't want to be boasting about that. We can build our country, but we want to get rid of this bloody occupation. And this is the time. Of course, my message to you is very clear. As long as we are breathing through your lungs and through your support, I think the blood is running in our veins. And as long as we have produced babies that are more important than their nuclear weapons, believe me, ultimately, we are going to win. And I say, 20 years down the pipeline, as a professor of conflict management, when I tell my students, cast 20 years down the pipeline, what do you see in terms of a vision? You know what they tell me? Israel cannot continue to be a pariah state. Israel cannot continue to live in a fortress with a siege mentality. Israel cannot continue to be psychologically traumatized by the fact that there are Palestinians there willing to fight for their survival. Israel has to understand a basic reality. They cannot exist in the Middle East without recognizing legitimately the independence of Palestinian state, because we will be the only one who will give Israel the legitimate birth certificate in the Arab world. Imagine if Israel has accepted the 2002, the result of the Arab Summit, what we call the Arab Peace Initiative, in 2002. Today, it's almost like 11 years. Imagine if they have accepted to normalize with the Arab world in exchange of giving back the territories of 1967. Today, we could have a different Middle East. Today, we could have seen the flags of Israel hoisted in Tehran and in Mecca. But Israel is professional. Abba Eban used to tell us, Palestinians are so famous in losing opportunities. I tell you what, we have learned from history not to lose opportunities. Israel is losing their opportunity now. This is the golden time for Israel to understand this basic reality. Because the Arab world is not going to continue to be fractionalized and divided. The Muslim world is not going to sit idle and see Israel digging under the mosque and desecrate the Islamic and the religious, the other religious holy sites, the Christians and what have you. Right? The Palestinians are not going to continue to be divided, unfortunately, between Hamas and Fatah. And the United States, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to continue to be the unipolar police power in the world. If we are students of international politics, we have understood the transformations of the bipolar to the multipolar to the unipolar system of governments in the world. But I tell you, the time has come that the demise of the United States is going to be organically intertwined with the demise of the state of Israel. Then God, help us if that situation arises, because I cannot see except destruction and war. This is the time where we have to make peace, because peace is the only path towards reconciliation. Justice, security, and stability in the Middle East cannot really be materialized without solving, without a conflict resolution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Rather, the crisis management of occupation. And this is what the US is doing. Crisis management of occupation. And that equation is a recipe for disaster. It's not going to work, ladies and gentlemen. And I assure you, as long as this gracious lady has said, there is one Palestinian breathing, we will never give up our rights in having our state liberated from the vestiges of occupation, i.e. Israel should understand that the basic reality stands. People eventually who have been suffering injustice are going to control their destinies and find their existence on their soil by getting rid of occupation. The sooner, the better. Thank you very much.